If you're looking to move to Atlanta in an affordable-ish luxury apartment, I got you. And don't worry, prices and the building name is all gonna be included in the video. And that's not all. We're gonna get into the location, the reviews, everything. By the end of this video, even if you don't want to go with any of the buildings that I've shown, you're gonna be ready to get started on your Atlanta leasing process because, whew, it's a journey. And I went through it all, so you didn't have to. So let's jump into the tour, shall we? Yeah, let's go, come on. But wait, we gotta cover some basics first. So my budget going into this was anywhere between $1,300 to $1,600. Now the areas that I looked at were Buckhead, Midtown, West Midtown, and only one building in Sandy Springs. I really wanted to be closer into the city of Atlanta. So those are the major areas that I looked at buildings at. Now let's get into the must-haves for when I toured these buildings. Of course, more than anything, the top of my must-have list is always natural light. I cannot live in a dungeon. I cannot live where there's no light coming in. I'm a homebody. I love to be at home. I love to enjoy my home, enjoy the rent that I pay in my home, and I need sunlight in there. The next must-have that I needed was a pool because coming from Chicago and coming from the Midwest, I've never lived in a nicer apartment building that has a pool and amenities. And now that I'm gonna have to be dealing with that southern heat and humidity, I needed a pool in my building, so that was definitely a must-have. Now, I've lived on the ground floor one time when I was in college in my college apartment and never again. So I cannot live on the ground floor or even the first floor. I need to live a little bit higher up, and that leads into my last must-have. I'll preferably be like above the 5th floor, above the 7th floor. I wanna be higher up in a high-rise building. Now, let's get into the deal breakers. Again, I feel like I don't have that many deal breakers. Like, I know what I want in my head, so these few specific deal breakers are like the ultimate deal breakers. Everything else is like, okay, I could maybe work with that. But of course, just going off my must-haves, you'll already know that if it's a low floor or no sunlight, it's a dub. I don't want it. And besides those two things, I really don't want an inside facing unit. I don't want to face the courtyard. I don't want to face the pool. And side note, why do apartment buildings build their whole apartment around the pool? So then when you're at the pool, everyone is just staring at you at the pool, or like it feels like everyone's staring at you even if they aren't looking at you. It's just weird. Like, why do they do that? I don't know. I don't like that. But that's a side note. I don't want a courtyard facing apartment. I want to face outside. And those are really my only 3 deal breakers. Everything else, if I didn't really like it, like the countertops, the floor colors, anything else like that, I can work with. I can make it work. But those are my big 3 deal breakers that I cannot have. So now we got that out of the way. Now let's jump into the tours. And we'll go kind of in order of where I toured buildings. So I started off in West Midtown. And I know, and if you're an Atlanta native, y'all are like, West Midtown, please, that's not a place. The realtors, people call it West Midtown, Upper West Side. We're just gonna kind of group it all together and we'll start there. So this first building that I looked at was the View at the Quarter, and this was in the Upper West Side. And I had actually been eyeing out this building for about 2 years because I had wanted to move to Atlanta a couple years ago and it just never went through. I never ended up moving. I'm like, oh, now is the time. I still really love the apartment, so let me go look at it. So I went to go look at the apartment and unfortunately, pause. I didn't even tell you, I'm looking mostly for a studio. I love studio living. I've lived in a studio since I moved to Chicago in 2021. I don't know, I love studios. They're just so comfortable and cozy. But I did tour other units because a lot of the times a studio wasn't available in the buildings that I was touring. So you're gonna see 1 beds and 2 beds, but ideally for me, within my budget, I'm looking for a studio. Some areas building, depending, I could get a 1 bed within my budget, but me personally, I'm prioritizing a studio because I like a studio. I don't know, call me crazy, but I love a studio. Back to the View at the Quarter. So this was a self-guided tour, which I figured out when I toured over the 10 buildings in Atlanta that I love a self-guided tour. That was A1, so I could just go at my own pace. I could take my videos. I could just do everything my own pace. I don't have a leasing agent breathing down my neck trying to sell me on the unit. Like, whoa, relax. I just want to look at the unit. Immediately walking into this unit, I knew it was way too big for me. It was a 2-bed. Like I said, 2 beds aren't even on my list, but you know, I just kind of got the idea of the vibe of the building. Besides it being way too much space for 1 person, in my opinion, I feel like this would be perfect for 2 people. I did still love the unit. It just felt so spacious and open, and there was a lot of closet space, a lot of storage space, and there was overall just a lot of square footage in the apartment compared to the other buildings that I toured later on. And all the windows, oh my gosh, I was obsessed with all the windows and the wraparound balcony. It was so nice. I really had no notes other than the unit that they were showing me was on the ground floor and it was a 2-bed. The unit was super nice. I loved it. But after I left the unit and after I started walking around the complex a little bit more, I'm like, I'm not really feeling this anymore. Because a big thing I learned when I was looking at these apartments is you really got to get a feel for the overall vibe of the community, because yeah, the unit may be nice. You also want the whole area that you're living to be maintained and nice. And that's where the View at the Quarter kind of lost me. Now, don't get me wrong. The pool, amazing. I loved it. Even though it was kind of built around some apartments, it got a lot of natural sunlight when I was there. And it looked really luxurious and really like, I just wanted to jump in. But then I went over to the dog park and it just looked so ran down. The gym wasn't anything to write home about. I just wasn't getting that like oh yeah, this is the apartment I need. So that's when I moved on to another building in the Upper West Side. And this building was actually in my top 3. I actually saw this one driving by going to tour the view at the quarter. Seeing it from the outside, it has a super modern look to it. It's right next to a Publix, which I love, so I can just go across the street, get my groceries, go back home. I don't gotta make a whole trip. Also, the leasing staff, super friendly. The gym, amazing. And I got to the unit. And then the unit lost me. It was just so dark in that unit, and it was inside facing. There was literally 2 small little windows throughout the whole unit. Apartment buildings were built around the pool. I wasn't feeling it. Coming from Chicago, it's not like this, but in Atlanta, a lot of the apartment buildings are like mazes. They're huge. They like go in squares, they go in circles. And to get to my apartment from the leasing office, which I know I'm not going to be walking through the leasing office, it was just kind of like a lot going on in the apartment complex. So even though it looked nice, the amenities were nice, and the unit was nice. I did like how the unit looked. I loved the little bench when you walked in. That was something that I hadn't really seen. And it was fairly spacious for one person. It had a nice kitchen, even though I don't really care about the kitchen because I don't cook. It just wasn't speaking to me. So I scratched that one off the list and we kept it moving. All right, this is the second to last building that I looked at in the Upper West Side, West Midtown area. And this is the building that made me say no to West Midtown. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm really vibing here. I don't know. It just, something about the vibes of this building I just did not like. I heard a lot of good things about Amli building, so I looked at the Amli West Side. Honestly, the building does have good reviews. It's in a good area of West Midtown, but the unit, the amenities, the safety of the building, all of it, like, get me out of here yesterday. So once again, another maze of a building, but it was a self-guided tour, so I did appreciate that. I just kind of got lost in there and went about my way trying to find it. And right when I walked into the unit, I'm just like, I don't like this. And looking back, I'm like, maybe it's because of how it was staged and decorated. Like, there was just so much clutter and so much stuff going on. Maybe that kind of skewed my mind, but it was just dark and I didn't like the setup. Now, there was a lot of closet and storage space, which was really nice. But other than that, I was like, yeah, I can go. I really don't have any other note. But I'm like, you know what? Let me go check out the amenities, whatever. The pool, horrible. Once again, the apartment buildings were all facing the pool and it was like facing a cement wall. I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is not the vibe. It's not the vibe. And then the gym was packed out and I'm like, okay, no, not feeling it. Now this is where the building lost me. So they did have a rooftop. I'm like, okay, cool. Let me go out there. And I'm just kind of exploring everywhere. I'm telling you, that's why I like the self-guided tours, because I'm just going everywhere. Like I gotta see all the vibes. So I find myself like behind some gate going down a stairwell. Why did I open the stairwell? There was a homeless man camped out in the stairwell. Now don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with the homeless man there. It's hard out here, like you gotta find somewhere to go. But price of the building was just not matching the security. If the price was cheap, I'm like, okay, I mean, what's to be expected, right? There isn't much security, it is what it is. But the price of the building was not matching the security, so I'm like, for that reason, I'm out. That's exactly what I did. I skirted out of Amli Westside and I headed right across the street to Sentral West Midtown. And this is another building that I've been eyeing for a while. I really loved it. It gives very luxurious, very resort feeling. And this is actually the building I thought I was gonna move into before I even started the tours, because I was just so sold on the building. The pool, loved it. The amenities, loved it. Had a dog wash station, a doorman, package receiving, coffee shop in the building. It was just check, checking all my boxes. I loved it. And once again, then we got to the unit. And I was just like, I don't know. You know, when the unit is just not speaking to me, like sometimes you just gotta, it just doesn't speak to you. And this unit, I was just like, I love it, but for the price, it's crazy. I can't do it. I can't do it. And since we're talking about price, this is the perfect time to bring up the topic of concessions, because all the buildings that I looked at were all offering concessions. And basically what that is like deals on your lease. So some buildings were offering 2 months free, 3 months free. You get the point. Basically, it's a promo to get you moved in. So Sentral was offering, I think, like a month free and then 6 months free of parking. So it brought the rent down monthly to a pretty good price. I think for the unit that I looked at, it was like $13.50, I believe, when I toured it. And I'm like, oh, perfect. That's good. Like, this is a small space. I feel comfortable. Like, I feel like $1,300 is a cool price. But then they got into the fee schedule. So the reason they were offering those concessions and the monthly rent could be low was because all the monthly fees were stacking, piling upon each other. And by the time I got done adding it all together, it was like an extra $300 a month in fees on top of the rent. So now the rent is like $1,660. And I'm like, okay, no. I can't do that. Like, no, it just doesn't make sense for the unit. Did not match the price in my head. Love the overall vibe of the apartment, but it was just too small to be paying $1,650 a month. So for that reason, I'm like, sorry, I gotta leave y'all, even though I've been obsessed with y'all for so long. Let me X that one off the list and moved on to the next one. And that actually wrapped our Upper West Side, West Midtown tours. And now we're gonna head all the way up, it's not that far, but all the way up to Sandy Springs to look at the one complex that I looked at up there. And Hint, hint, it was horrible. I did not like it. This was a brand new building, so I had high hopes for it and I was really excited to go see it. And when I tell you selling it, they were selling it to me. I'm like, okay, relax. Like, let me just look at the unit. Like, you don't gotta sell me. I'm just trying to look at the unit. Now, the amenities, I mean, pretty nice. I feel like a common trend with these more luxury-ish type of buildings that are new and getting built is they're putting so much money into common spaces and making so many common spaces, taking up all the space in the common spaces, and then they're making the apartments shoeboxes. And then our rent is being paid for these common spaces. And I just feel like, whoa, not everybody works from home. A lot of people are going back to the office. We don't need all these common spaces. Now, the gym was nice. The pool, I wasn't really sold on it. Once again, in the middle of all the apartments built around it. I don't know. I don't love that. I know it's super common, but I just don't love it. That's not even the worst part. The video was not very good because there was no room for 3 of us in that unit. And I tell you, that was the smallest unit I've ever looked at. From the time I walked into the door, I wanted to tell her, like, we can just wrap this up. Like, we can just go now. Because the price that they wanted for that, it was insane. Mind-boggling. I'm like, yeah, no, get me out of here. And I think the reason it felt so small was because they had that wall dividing it, trying to make a separated bedroom and living room area, but all it did was make the area feel super crammed. And I was claustrophobic in there. I'm like, for someone that likes studios, this is too much. Get me the hell out of here. Sandy Springs is cool, but like I said at the beginning of the video, my first time living in Atlanta, I just wanted to live more of like Sentral city area. Skirted out of Sandy Springs and we headed all the way down to Midtown, and I looked at a few buildings there because that is where a lot of the more luxury buildings are. And I just wanted to check them out. Now, these were definitely on the higher price point for my budget, but I'm like, you know what? A lot of them are offering concessions. So after the concessions, it would all kind of balance out. The first building that I looked at was Novel in Midtown. Overall, the amenities were really nice. They had a rooftop pool and they had a jacuzzi, which was really nice. And the overall vibe of the building was just very luxury. Like, it did just feel like a nice luxury apartment building, which I really wanted. Once again, we get to the unit and this is where they lost me. Because in my opinion, it was just way too overpriced for the space. And you're more so just paying to be in Midtown and live in a luxury building with the amenity. It was directly across from Northside Hospital. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna get ambulance noises. Even though it was a luxury high rise, there was still only that one little window. So like, even though the space was pretty small, it was still really dark. One thing I do like is that wall kitchen. What is it called? Is it a galley kitchen? No, I love when the kitchens are just like against the wall and not taking up a lot of space. But other than that, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm not really impressed for the price. So we moved on to another building. And when I tell you, this was my top building, I fell in love with this building. Now, you remember how I was just talking about, like, stop spending all that money on the common spaces. Like, the common space doesn't matter, the apartment matters. No, I don't know. Something about this apartment complex, it just, like, from the time I walked in the door, I'm just like, this is me. Like, I need to live here. I love it here. Oh my gosh, I loved it. So this was the Emmi in Midtown. When you walk in the door in this building, it just felt like I was at a resort in Tulum. I just felt like I was transported there and I was just so zen, peaceful, and all the vibes were just hitting me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it here. I need to live here. Of course, we check out the amenities first. The gym's cool. There's a couple common areas. What really sold me was the pool because there was a nice clear view. The pool got a lot of sun. It just felt really resorty to me. I don't know. I can't explain the feeling I got when I was at the building. It also had a nice fire pit outside by the pool. There was a huge projector screen that you could rent for free. I was just in love, I'm telling you. And then we got to the unit and surprise, I was still in love. I didn't fall out of love when we got to the unit. I was still in love. Now, looking back on it now that I took my obsession out of it and I know that I'm not living there, the unit wasn't even that special. I don't know why I was so in love with it. My mind just gets fixated on something and I'm just like, oh yeah, I need that. I'm gonna have that. But I mean, the unit was good overall. It got sunlight. It had a studio layout that I liked. Once again, it had the kitchen on the wall and then it was just a big open area. It was a perfect studio setup for me. I need this unit. I need to live here immediately. Yeah, I need to move in yesterday, actually. That dream quickly crumbled and fell to the ground when she started telling me the price, because I'm like, oh no. The price, crazy. But I'm like, but wait, you know, I could swing it. Like, I could make it work if it's something that's really gonna bring me joy. Like, it's really gonna bring me happiness. I just think it's worth it. So I'm like, I'm trying to justify, like, okay, it's only like $100 outside of the budget. We can make that work. We just make $100 extra a month, right? We can make it work. That quickly led me into my next issue. So a lot of these buildings in Midtown, Buckhead, nicer luxury buildings use this service called Approved Shield. And if you don't know anything about Approved Shield, be thankful. And if you're moving to Atlanta, brace yourself, because this was the most annoying process of my life. Now, I didn't even get to the point of using Approved Shield at this building, but looking back on it, I know they use Approved Shield now, so I wouldn't have gotten approved for it either way. So we'll come back to Approved Shield in just a minute when I tell you about the building that I applied to and they denied me. Anyways, back to the Emmi. So eventually I came to my senses and I'm like, okay, $1,700 or however much the price was. I don't even remember off the top of my head. It's a little crazy. Like, the unit's not worth that much. You can move on. Like, you like the vibe of the building, but you can't pay for just the vibe. So I had to be mature and had to talk myself out of the Emmi. But if you got the coin, I still really recommend the Emmi just based on my tour. Everyone was super friendly. The building seemed super nice. I did hear a couple mixed reviews on my TikTok when I posted my tours, but I don't know. I love the vibes. Now, before we get into the Perugio topic, the last building that I looked at in the Midtown, or I guess this wasn't even Midtown, this is more downtown area, was a building that I shouldn't have even looked at, to be honest. But I was just like, I don't know, maybe like I gotta be open to all areas. It was really close to Piedmont, like I could walk to Piedmont. I'm like, you know, like, it's a cool vibe. It could be. No. And the reason I'm telling you I shouldn't even tour this building was because I looked at the reviews before I toured any of these buildings, and that is a major key. Before you even schedule a tour at these buildings, look at the reviews. You need to see what the lowest reviews are saying. Now, keep in mind, all the buildings in Atlanta, all the buildings everywhere, all the buildings in Chicago too, there's always going to be someone with a negative experience. There's always going to be multiple people with a negative experience. So you really have to take these reviews with a grain of salt, but also be mindful, right? If you see one person complaining that the maintenance team is trash, but you see no other reviews talking about that, the maintenance team probably just didn't get to their issue right away, and that just is what it is. But if you see multiple people saying that they are breaking their lease, moving out, having to deal with cockroaches, rodents, I would probably take their word. And that probably wouldn't be somewhere you want to tour and look. Look at the reviews, but also be mindful and know that people complain about a lot. Most of the time when people are leaving a review, it's going to be negative. So there is going to be a lot of negative reviews, but look through the reviews, see what the commonality is, and see if that's something you can deal with, because all the buildings are going to have bad things about them. It's just about if it's something you can deal with. So I say all that to say, this building had negatives across the board. There was more negatives than positive. And all the negatives were having commonalities between all the reviews. So I'm like, okay, this building's, it's a little sketch. And then it started off pretty rocky for me too. I scheduled my tour for 3 o'clock. I get there like 5 minutes before, whatever. I don't mind waiting a little bit. Obviously the leasing team's probably busy. Maybe they're wrapping up their last tour. Maybe I had a last minute person come in. I don't know, whatever. I'm cool with waiting. But when I make an appointment somewhere, I just feel like to have me waiting 30 to 45 minutes, it's kind of crazy. And then no, sorry, we're running a little behind, no acknowledgement from it is even crazier. And I think it's just very telling about the overall management of the building. It just doesn't give me good vibes. Even though I was annoyed that I had to wait, it wasn't even so much that aspect. It just kind of told me more about how the building operates and how the building is. That's not all. In the 30, 45 minutes that I was sitting there, there was cops in and out of the building. I'm like, okay, so it's a lot going on in this building. And that was something that I saw in the review. So I'm like, okay, I mean, they told me. Amenities were cool. They had a rooftop pool, which I really liked. The gym packed out. They were blaring music in there. I mean, it seemed like a good time. I don't know. Then they just had some pointless amenities, in my opinion. There was like a hair salon. Well, I mean, that maybe it's not pointless for everybody, but like that wasn't the one that was pointless that I was talking about. But like they had like a massage room and stuff. We're not living in like $1 million a month unit. Why do we have these unnecessary services? Like, I just feel like pointless, whatever. But they did have a sauna, which I thought was cool. But then we saw the first unit and I'm just like, is this real life? Are y'all really renting something like this? Because remember how I was just saying, I love a studio. But this was not a studio, this was a closet. This was a closet. You would actually have to pay me to live there. And I'm just like, this is insane. And I turned around and I left. And I'm like, I need something else. So he showed me a 1-bed, 1-bath. Now, don't get me wrong, that building was nice, but something about it, it just felt cheap. I don't know. I didn't feel quality, which is common with these new luxury buildings. It just wasn't giving me like worth the money. And then the building and service as a whole, I'm just kind of like, yeah, no. There's a lot of signs that I shouldn't live here and I'm just gonna take them. So even though the 1-bed was cool, I still wasn't really feeling it, wasn't feeling the service. So I skirted out of there. We left Midtown, we left downtown, and then we headed up to Buckhead where I fell in love. Yes, I fell in love. Fell in love and got my heart broken all at the same time. Yep. That'll do it. That'll do it. First building that I looked at in Buckhead was the Gentry, and this is actually in Buckhead Village. Love Buckhead Village. Like, that is just so the vibe that I want. Kind of has like a walkable element to it. You're not just out in the middle of nowhere like how I was at the Upper West Side, some of those buildings over there. I feel like I just still had a little bit of that city element from living in Chicago in Buckhead Village, and it's just something I really am not ready to give up yet. I love the area, and honestly, I really like the building too. Something really unique about this building was that it had an indoor dog park, which was something none of the other buildings had, and I thought it was super cool. Maybe a little gross, probably stinks in there. They said they hose it down every day. I mean, I don't know. Think about the days that it's raining and you could just go down and take your dog out, or in the middle of the night. Gym was cool. I mean, I don't really care about the gym, to be honest. It was a little bit small, but I mean, it would get the job done. I would keep my gym membership anyway, so I don't really care about the gym. But the pool, loved the pool. It was a rooftop pool, no apartment buildings around the pool. I was in love. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. But then we got to the units and I was just like, I looked at 3 different units. So the first one, I'm like, immediately no. It was another one of those boxy cutoff units where there was just a wall in the middle of it for people that want a little bit more separation in their unit. But I don't want that. I don't like that. It just makes the unit feel so closed off and small. So I'm like, yeah, no, I need to see a different unit. Then she showed me a more open style one, which I really liked this unit, but it was inside facing. And I'm just like, I don't know, because it was on a high enough floor to where it still had like a view out, but there was also apartment buildings directly next to me. And like, if I had my blinds open, they'd be able to see right into my unit. And I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. But like, I did like the building and the unit was cool other than it being inside facing, but I still wanted to see another unit. She took me to the 3rd and final unit in this building. Honestly, the layout for this one, I could see why someone would really like it. For some reason, it just wasn't really my favorite. And honestly, maybe it's not even the layout. I think maybe if it was on a higher floor, I would have liked it more, but I just didn't like that I was directly facing the courtyard. I feel like people could just look up and see into my apartment. And once again, there was just a lot of space in the kitchen, which I don't really need. A really nice unit. It just wasn't for me. So I left there kind of feeling like, I don't know, could I make one of those work? Because I really liked the building. Everyone was super friendly. I liked the amenities. They had concierge, package receiving. It was just checking all the boxes for me. But I'm like, are any of the units really speaking to me? And I wasn't really sure. So then I headed to a different building. Actually not gonna say this building because it may or may not be the one I'm moving into. I don't know. I hated this building when I walked into it, and I actually kind of got into it with the leasing staff because it's my fault, honestly. I was hungry. Like, I was hangry. I'm sorry. I got into it. She clocked me back. We're even, right? But no, immediately I was like blue when I went on this tour because once again I had a scheduled tour and it was just so disorganized. There was people all over. They were not ready. I was buzzing into the door for 10 minutes. No one was answering the buzzer. I'm like, it's not a good impression. This is not a good impression. So I went in there and I'm like, does nobody respond to like the door buzzer? She's like, well, you see, I just got back to my desk. I'm like, ooh, she clocked me. But I'm like, you're the only person that can open the door? Like, what? There's a million other people in here. I'm just like, whatever. Gym's nice, nothing like super spectacular, but once again, don't really care about the gym. I'm headed for the pool. So I go up to the pool and it's not as good as the Gentry's pool, but it works. Once again, there's apartment buildings facing the pool, but there's not apartments built all the way around the pool, and the pool is on a rooftop. So I'm like, okay, compromise. I can work with it. And then I got to the unit and I'm like, wait, I kind of like this unit. Dang. I don't like the staff, but I kind of like this unit. But then I'm like, wait, your staff's probably nice. I was just being a little feisty because I was angry, right? But anyways, back to the tour. My ideal setup for a studio. Kitchen on the wall, big open space, and this one had a balcony. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this. A balcony wasn't even on my list because I've had a balcony before and I'm just like, nah, I don't really care about a balcony, but to have a balcony, and then it had windows. It was so bright. It was on a high floor. The only con that I had about this unit was this closet space was so small. The washer and dryer was in the closet and it was taking up like the whole closet. So I'm like, yeah, that's definitely going to be a struggle. I'm definitely going to have a storage unit. And then like some other minor things, like the fixtures were like gold and it just was kind of giving me like a little tacky vibes, but I'm like, that's fine. I can change that out if I really wanted to. But once again, I was kind of letting like the little back and forth that I had with the leasing staff and my irritation with them get in the way of how I really felt about the unit. So I kind of left out of there like, no, I'm not living there. So that led me to apply to the Gentry because I was stalking their website and they actually had a unit come up that was like the first unit that I didn't really love because it was like split in half, but there was a little bit more square footage. So it was a little bit bigger. It was outward facing, had a balcony. It was checking all my boxes. I'm like, perfect. Let me apply here. Love the building, love the staff. So I applied to this building, $100 application fee. That's another thing to know. When you apply to a building, make sure it's the building that you're qualified for. Make sure it's a building that you really actually want to live at because these application fees are non-refundable. $100, right? Okay. But I'm thinking, cool, I meet the income requirements. I got pay stubs. I qualify. And this is where I learned about Approved Shield. So basically what Approved Shield does is apartment companies have you submit all your documentation to them and they go through it with a fine tooth comb because Atlanta has a lot of scammers, a lot of people using fake pay stubs, just fake everything, trying to scam, get into apartment buildings. And basically this service makes it impossible because I had legit income and they were denying. So I've been working as a travel CNA since about 2021 on and off. I work contracts, take time off, work contracts, take time off, whatever. So I hear back from Approved Shield and they're like, oh yeah, no, you don't have steady income, so we can't approve you. I'm like, So basically, since I've been with this agency that I've been with since 2017 and working contracts with on and off since 2021, could always work a contract, could pick one up tomorrow and start working, could work per diem tomorrow, today. Like, I'm always gonna have a job, I'm always gonna have work. They saw it as unsteady income, so they were denying me. So they're like, but you could qualify with a year's worth of rent in your savings. And I'm like, well, wait. So I've been stacking my money since I've been working so much. I'm like, cool, I can just apply with the year's worth of rent in my savings, get all my money in my account. I go to submit the account. Take a couple days because, mind you, all this is across like a week process. So I'm not hearing back for like a week. They get back to me. They're like, oh, you actually have to have that money in your savings account for at least 6 months. I'm like, how many more stipulations do you want to give me? And at this point, I'm like, okay, the first one, that could have been just a mishap, right? I've never had an issue getting in apartments in Chicago with my working travel assignments. But I'm like, you know, it's different. It's a different rental market, whatever. Maybe they don't want to go with that, but I got the savings to show it's good. And then when they told me that, I'm like, yeah, no. The first one could have been a mishap, but this second one, I'm like, this is a sign that this building is not for me. So I had to eat that $100 application fee. And I felt like after that process, I was initiated into Atlanta because that whole Approved Shield mess, it was crazy. Then they wanted to get on the phone and verify with my bank. I'm like, this is crazy. This is too much for a building. I feel like I'm buying a house. Like, I'm renting an apartment. It's never that serious. It's never that deep. So I sadly had to leave the Gentry alone. It actually led me to what I think, fingers crossed, what I hope is going to be an even better building. And I'm super excited to show you guys a tour of that one. But I hope this video helped you in your search of your Atlanta apartment. And if you have any other questions, definitely drop them in the comments and I can help you out. And make sure you subscribe so you can see the unit that I ended up picking. See y'all in my next video. Bye.